On this auspicious occasion of Mahalaya Amavasya, on the 2nd of October 2024, which also happens to be Gandhi Jayanti, birthday of Mahatma Gandhi, making this video to share with you about Navratri. So Navratri opens from tomorrow. So following the 9 days following Mahalaya Amavasya is Navratri. And Mahalaya Amavasya is a very significant Amavasya. Amavasya means the dark moon. And so we are just coming out of 2 weeks of Pitru Paksha. Yeah, so the last 2 weeks, the two waning weeks post the full moon, the last full moon, the last month, we have been in this space is considered, this time is considered as a time of remembering ancestors. If any ancestors have not been venerated or revered or offered their offer, we have something called a Shraddha. That means it is really letting the ancestor go into the ancestral realm, really acknowledging their place, honoring their place in our system, including them in our system, and including their fate in our system, and really allowing that node in our ancestral map to begin to flow. So the 2 weeks of two weeks that we just finished was Pitru Paksha, and that is when the ancestral gateway opens up. So like you have the Day of the Dead on 1st of November, which starts from 31st of October evening to 1st of November. In India, it is this time. Yeah, and this time keeps varying because it is dependent on the moon. Yeah, so sun and moon and the solar month. Yeah, so this is the solar month of Virgo. Yeah, so we have not yet entered Libra in the Indian calendar. Okay, the sun has not yet entered Libra. It will enter Libra in another 4 or 5 days. So we are still in the Virgo or the Kani month. And so these 2 weeks where really we say that the ancestral realm opens and all the ancestors are due for their remembrance. So there might be, so I really I can only, if you have both your parents, then you do not do the Shraddha. So you do not do the ritual because you do not have access to the ancestral realm in that way. But you can light a lamp, remember your entire line through your parents and feel that gratitude. Yeah. And my parents can do it, but you don't have to do it every year. So sometimes you would do it in the first few years, but we remember. So we would do rituals at home, or we would, make a favorite dish of the ancestor, things like that. Yeah. So this is that. So when those 2 weeks in the autumn, they complete and we come here, is when we enter into Navratri. This after this dark moon, we enter into 9 days of autumn Navratri, or also called as Sharad Navratri. Yeah. And what I also have to say that not everyone in India observes these 2 weeks of Pitru Paksha. Okay, like for me, I come from Kerala. So for me, the Cancer dark moon, the dark moon that happened in the month of Cancer, yeah, that is when we observed. That's when we observed the Pitru Paksha, or we call it the Vav Bali. So that is the day we do Bali or Shraddha, or we offer our ancestral reverence, ancestral rituals on that day. That is also when rain comes into Kerala, and it is actually, if you see, that day is equivalent to the entering into the Dakshinayana, or the feminine cycle, or the cycle that is moving now towards darkness, yeah, or the death cycle. Yeah, so it is moving towards slowing down into the being space. So there is that movement that starts with the Karka, entering in when the sun enters Cancer, we enter into that Dakshinayan, and when in the same way in Capricorn, that is in January, when sun enters Capricorn, we enter into the Uttarayan, which is the light cycle or the doing cycle. Yeah, and that's when spring opens up, and with this autumn opens up. And so as Dakshinayan opens up, and the dark moon in the Dakshinayan in the month of Cancer is when people of Kerala, they actually would do their ancestral rituals. So, and yeah, so in India, that also varies. So you can't fully say that. So, but Navratri is opening now 9 days. So Navratri is 9 days. And many people think that there is only, this is the only Navratri which is so, visual and visible and celebrated in that way. Like if you see Calcutta, Navratri or Durga Puja, this is the when all the goddess is really honored, and because it's a feminine, yeah, we're entering into the feminine with, and she is associated, Shakti is associated with mattering, all mattering, not just women or men, but just mattering on earth. Earth itself is Shakti, yeah. So that celebration of that Shakti, and and here we are, of course, also celebrating this human birth. That's why it's 9 nights, which is connected to 9 months of gestation. So, and if you see in Calcutta, the Durga Puja, or the goddess festival of Navratri, has UNESCO. It's a UNESCO heritage status. So this is what is known. But Navratri, there are 4 Navratris that happen in a year, in each of the 4 core phases of the year. Yeah. And so to understand Navaratri and understand the significance of Navaratri, we have to begin from when light comes into, and we enter into Shivaratri. So Mahashivaratri, we have to really recognize that, and we have to recognize the very core of this festival map. Yeah, what is that? What is the purpose of all these festivals? Today we celebrate, but we are really do not know what we are really doing here. So one of my core journeys of my life has been to really discover, or to create more and more space to discover my experience as a human being, and doing only being on the periphery. So at the core of me, to discover that I am the being. Yeah, so then from my being in the core center, the doing happens around the periphery, but I always return back to my center. But that's so difficult for me sometimes to do, because my whole life I have been trained that my worth is in the doing. I am worthwhile, only through my doing. And you see that wherever you go to places, you will always notice that people have lost the ability to recognize the being in someone. They want to see the doing. So what you see, yeah, what is shown, and that is always gets a much louder status. Yeah, and the thing is, the being is very slow. The movement of the spirit, like the spirit movement, is very slow and quiet. Yeah, it does not have all these frills of doing, yeah, that we see with Shakti is frill, Shakti is the doing. She is the grandiose of everything that we see, and often she is also called as Maya, or the illusion. We get so caught in that we forget that which is the center and the core of Shakti, and that is Shiva, that is consciousness. And here again, it is not men, male, female, but it is something even more deeper than that. So this is the very ancient wisdom and science and our ancestors, because on this very unique experience of being human being, doing is a very small part. And in the way that our Mother Earth and the Mother Earth and the natural way that the earth has come into existence, and life on earth has a natural rhythm. The energetic body has come to experience this human beings, yeah, through this body, which is very much connected to this rhythm on earth. We are not born on Saturn, and we are not born on Jupiter, we are not born in Venus. We are born on earth, and earth has a very specific rhythm in the way that life has come to exist and thrive on earth. And that is very much connected to the way earth's distance around from the sun, the way the moon has moves around the earth, yeah, and has an impact on the earth, and how the planets also have an impact on the earth. The closest is the moon. The sun, it has a huge impact on our day and night cycles. If you see, even light is not the same on Earth. Like if you go to Venus, or if you go to Mars, or if you go any of these, the light is very different. But on Earth, we have this equi-light movement. So we have 24 hours of which constitute a day-night cycle. So half of it is light and half of it is day. And that again varies depending on where on earth you are. And you will notice that depending on where you are on earth, the quality of life, the quantity of life also shifts. Our mental, emotional makeup shifts. And that is how it is. That is the way that is, yeah. And it is, so in this ritual map that you're talking about is very much connected to the subcontinent of India. This is where we are a little bit above, you know uh, above the equator, yeah, the Indian. And so if you go very further, we still have snow caps, but we have a very different weather condition, a very favorable weather condition. That is what has attracted so many like conquerors to come to this land. Yeah. And so there's something about here that has made things happen, come alive. Yeah. And somewhere that those who have lived on this land were also able to recognize certain way this whole cosmos is. So that's part, so some very deep wisdom has got cognized from this geographical location in the human knowing. Yeah. And that's very profound. So those elders created maps. They created that this compass, this human compass of being on earth is not a static compass. So if we have to be in this body to have this human experience in our full potentiality, then there is a waxing and waning. It's not a static thing. So our doing also is on the periphery. So our doing has to blossom from the being. So the being is the core. So from the being, the doing, like a spring that sprouts from the earth, springs out, and then it goes back down. So then again, it has to be rejuvenated and the doing comes out. So the doing comes and then it has to go back into the being, rest, into the center. And then you come out of the center and you do all the doing. And then you come back into the center, take a dip. So everything in India, if you see our temples, mirror that. That you go into it, that the doing is on the periphery, the center core is the being. Everything when you go and take a dip into the river, or that's what again you're saying, that I dip into this consciousness and then I return back to doing. So this is what keeps, so this doing being rhythm. Yeah. And so even there's a transition. So from the being to doing, there's a transition. It's again a slow transition. And from the doing to being, there's a transition. But if you look around in the way everything is scheduled, there are no transitions. Everything is steady. Yeah, people have to do. So actually, if people pause, people feel that there's something wrong with me. Yeah, if I am not doing, and that's me too, it keeps coming and I have to keep saying, just relax back. It's okay. This is worthwhile. Being still, being quiet, staying in this non-doing space is worthwhile. It's rejuvenating. It's also part of my breath. Inhalation is wonderful, but I can't just stay in the inhalation. I have to let go the breath. And the deeper and longer my exhalations are, it supports my inhalation, the quality of my inhalation. So this rhythm was recognized on earth by elders. And the will, there's a human will. If every day morning, if you see a child, when we are babies have a fresh will. Every day you look at the baby, it'll be fresh when it wakes up. Doesn't look dull ever. To wakes up like that. There's a will that comes into life, and that's the will for doing. And this will needs to be taught also to rest in the being so it can again get refreshed. So this movement of the will. So And the will or ichha and swecha. So children have ichha. And as you become adult, you need to have swecha and ichha, which is founded in the swa, which is the being. Yeah. And that's the journey of the maturation, which usually doesn't happen because of the trauma map. And yet, ichha in India, the ichha is considered the goddess. So in Shakti, the E is the Ichha. The Ichha is what activates Shakti, this to be in life. So that Shakti is Ichha. If it's up to Shiva, if E is taken away from Shiva, it becomes Shava, which is corpse, which is the, you can call it corpse or you can call it complete stillness, non doing, no will, without will. So this ichha, so ichha is very sacred, very precious, and we have to kind of treat it like this little bud, breaking open and nourishing it. That is ichha. So even a child's ichha, you can see that. And how do you protect the child, teach the child boundaries without compromising the ichha, without compromising the will? But many times, like even in India, because of a trauma map, the counter will is so strong that the ichha really doesn't stand so much of a chance to the unique ichha of each life. Each life has a unique ichha. Each human life has a unique will that has come into existence to experience, to have that unique human experience. And many times it doesn't really materialize. Yeah. So now, if we come back to festival map of India, everything was coded in a way that this ichha can get reborn every time there is a shift in the doing to being to doing. So whenever the face is shifted, whenever light shifted, there was this will needs to be renewed. Yeah, the will needs to be rebirthed, refreshed, rejuvenated, re-informed. So this was so that we don't forget, so that we don't get caught in the maya of doing, in the illusion of doing. So the ritual maps existed, and we have such an elaborate ritual map that extends around the year. And this ritual map is very cosmic. So we, in a way that this ritual map exists, it honors Earth's unique place, our unique place on Earth, and Earth's unique movement in this Milky Way, in the influence of all the planets. So everything is taken into consideration. Yeah? So that's why this map is based also on the zodiac. All the zodiacs, like Aries through Pisces, they are connected to planets. And based on the movement of the planet, they create these maps in the sky, and those skies have an influence on us also based on our cosmic birth. So it's very interconnected. Even if you don't know, if you really follow this, it has an impact. Light, just like in a day, morning light comes and it takes us up. We rise. We do our will. So morning is the time between 6, when you wake up, 3 to 9 a.m. There is a gateway. So 3 a.m., 4 a.m. It's considered Brahma Muhurt in India. It is a time when the transition is happening. So it is that state of transition from being deep state of non-doing to being. Yeah. And that's also the peak time and dreams peak. Or if you wake up at that time, if you really stay there, you can really experience this non-doing state. Yeah. And that's when, and then life is coming into slowly doing. So we are doing is not in there. So it's when you wake up in the morning, you might find the sense of vulnerability, a softness, that things could be molded like a bowl of clay, like how it is soft, and you have to really kind of soften it, and then you can mold it. So that's the space of that time, 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. So it's a slow time. You can call it the spring, the morning, the spring of morning, the spring of the day. Yeah, and that is, I call that the being to doing. So we are transitioning slowly into being. And usually this is the time when people are rushing. Rush hour, we call it. It's so in opposition to what the time is. And then from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. is the doing. That is when the doing peaks. So 10 a.m. is a peak, sharp, active time, but that's when people feel like tired and you want to drink coffee or something like that. It's again, if you can see how much we have disconnected from this rhythm on life on earth. And then from 2 p.m., so peak is at noon, right? And then from 2 p.m. To 3 p.m., actually, 9 to 3 p.m. And if you're really present at 3 p.m., you will meet a little dip in your cognition, in your thinking. You might feel a little uh, dullness. So if you stay there a little more, you'll recognize it's really not dullness, it's a non-doingness. It is something is shifting. And if you stay there that time, if you take that time to really sit for few minutes quietly, if you play any instrument like flute or something very slow, you can play that. You can listen to chants or you can chant. You will see that it has a very deep impact on the quality of your sleep at night. So now we are entering into 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., which is actually again a shifting happening from doing to being. So if we can make that shift, then being is a non-doingness. That's when we can have deep rest. It rejuvenates all the organs. All the cleansing of the organs happen when we go into if we can go into deep sleep. Our body is really supported if we can get deep sleep. So the 3 to 9 p.m. is that time to slow down. It's almost like you can say coming back home. Yeah. And 6 p.m. is the midpoint, which is a very key point in the astrological. If you see it, it's a very key time. 6 to 8 is a key time. And then because the sun, the light is shifting. So, and again, if you look seasonally, this will have a different effect. Things change, right? So then when you come to 9 p.m., you will meet around 8, between 8 to 9 p.m., you will meet your first yawn. If your body is with the rhythm, you will meet your yawn, and that's very natural. Again, you feel that dip. And then how do you support yourself? How do you really honor that? This is a great time to nourish the being. Yeah? So your gratitude journal, coming into your own space. You can reduce the lights in the house, TVs are off, and then we are moving. So by 10, 11, you can be in bed. So this movement I wanted to say, and again, then you go deep sleep. And again, 3 a.m., there is that shift. So these 3 a.m., 3 p.m., 9 a.m., 9 p.m. are very powerful transitional points, along with 6 a.m., dawn, dusk, noon, and midnight. These are very key points. So if you look at a day cycle, 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. is one phase, which I call it the being to doing phase. 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. is the 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. is the doing phase, when you feel most doing. At the same time, you also have to nourish that doing. Eating comes, all that digestion. So there's a lot of doing happening in the body. So it's not just you doing outwards, even in your body, it's a very active state. And then 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. is again that shift towards being. And then 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. is the being phase. So Navrathri. So we begin into spring. So this 3 a.m. phase, the 3 a.m. time is the Mahashivaratri. So when I said 3 a.m., sometimes you wake up and we are neither here nor there. We are in this if you keep the habit of meditating at that time, you would meet something very, very, I don't know, I have no words for it. Because it's a different state that you might dip in, even maybe for a few seconds, and you will feel nourished. Yeah, you will feel 5 minutes, but you will feel like you have slept for 3 hours, and you will see that the clock has only moved 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And you're like, okay, what happened? Just, that's very deep. That 3 a.m., That 3 a.m. in the major, in the year is the Mahashivaratri. Mahashivaratri is when life is the time to really, the will is blessed to have another cycle on this earth. Yeah. See, these are not day festivals. So Shivaratri and Navaratri, they are all night festivals because night is the being. That is the being. That is the non-doing. So in a way, we are always celebrating non-doing, not the doing. And we forget that. We completely don't remember that. Okay. So Shivaratri, as I heard from my spiritual teacher, Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar, he always explains this as when consciousness comes down and kisses matter or kisses or blesses. And I see it's almost like this handoff, coming down and saying, yes, bless you, bless you, bless you, bless you, all of you in life. May you thrive and may you be refreshed and may you be alive and that kind of blessing. Yeah. And so that is called as Mahashivratri, that time, because it's 3 a.m. time. But there is Shivratri in every moon. So Shivratri is actually the 13th, 14th moon. Just before dark moon, that time is considered as Shivratri. Okay, so that happens in every month. But this Shivratri, which coincides with the light, rebirth of light and rebirth, which takes us into the new year, is what we call Mahashivratri. It is it's a 3 a.m. celebration. Yeah, yeah. But this 3 a.m. is a very powerful time in a day. In the same way, in a year, Mahashivratri is that in the overall thing, when I'm talking about being to doing, doing to being and being, these are very powerful maps. The way I look at the 4 phases, if you ask me, would be November, December, January as the being phase, February, March, April as being to doing, May, June, July as the peak doing, August, September, October again as a doing to being phase. Yeah? And each phase has a Navratri. So Navaratri, so once as you're entering into this phase, Navaratri is that dark moon, and then the Navaratri is 9 days after the dark moon. So that 9 days, we are what should I say, refreshing, reinforming, restoring, reviving, uh, the will for that phase. Yeah. And so this particular Navratri, as you're saying, 9 nights. So it's Shakti because will and to execute will, to express will, to live the will is Shakti. It's not Shiva. If it was Shiva, nothing is happening. Shakti is the front. She is the doing. That's why she's also called as the greatest illusion. Yeah, because she is the doing. We forget the consciousness or the being behind the doing. And that's why these festivals exist, because it keeps informing that the being, it's the being, not the doing. It's the being, not the doing. So these 9 days, we are really reviving the will. Yeah. And how do we do that? By immersing in the being. So though we talk about Navaratri, if we forget Shiva, Navaratri is dull. Navratri has no rasa, no juice. Devi is not the juice, the Shiva is the juice, being is the juice. Yeah. When she drinks that juice and she dances the juice, Shakti, the juice is what moves through Shakti and blesses this life and becomes this life. So these 9 nights are the nights to really rejuvenate this body with consciousness, to really establish the health of consciousness. So it is focused on swasthya also. And swasthya as the word, which is health, which is really not health. Swasthya means established in the self. So we are re-establishing our human existence once again in self. So that's what Navratri is. So this autumn Navratri is actually a slowing down Navratri. It is slowing us down towards what comes after, which is a deep rest. But since we follow the Gregorian calendar all over the world, we are not resting. Yeah, we rest when it is peak of doing. So we are all uh, messed up in our whole work culture. Yeah, but so this is, if you see, we are slowing down. So we are slowing down towards the deepest, darkest time of the night in northern hemisphere. So this map changes completely when you look at life in southern hemisphere. It's very different. Yeah, so southern hemisphere will now have Chaitra Navratri, not Sharad Navratri. It has spring Navratri. So for us, it is autumn Navratri. So these 9 nights, and each of these days of the moon has a very significant Shakti or energy. It is connected to elements, the 5 elements which bring us into expression, bring us into life. So you can say, and so I see this 9 nights as beginning with, you can go either ways, you can begin with Saraswati, Lakshmi and Durga, or you can start with Durga the first 2 3 days, which is the elements of earth and water, and then go to air, and then go to fire and air and ether. So these 5 days, we are really rejuvenating that. Yeah. So yes. So there are, if you look at it, it's really rebirthing or resimulating the 9 months of gestation. Yeah. So what happens in the first, if you look at 9 months, what happens in the first 2 months of life, then the next 2 months, how from a single celled organism, life goes into multiple functionality. So what shows up first, the ear comes, actually the sound, and how each of these different organs happen. So you'll also see how the elements come into it. That similar, something very similar is how we also celebrate Navratri. And one way that people celebrate Navratri is also to fast. Yeah, fasting means you have to slow down. Yeah, so you're really taking out grain completely, because grain in us, our entire body, is majorly made of carbohydrates. We are majority carbohydrates. We are majority carbs in the body. And that is Shakti, that is Annam, that is Devi, that is Goddess. So we refrain from that. Yeah. And we focus on all the other aspects. Yeah. So we fast, we chant. So the whole immersion is in the being. So you have to take the evening time to really immerse in the being. But we are focused more on the doing now. So it's all about what to do, what to wear, what color is it, what do I cook? So the focus is fully outwards. Yeah, so that doesn't really serve the purpose of Navratri, which is actually drawing us completely in. And then on the 10th day is the birth. Yeah, you have resimulated the 9 months of gestation within those 9 nights, and then you are emerging out back victorious. I'm again, my will is renewed, my I'm back. So this is a time to really do that. Your purpose is renewed, your emotional map is renewed, your intellectual map is renewed. So you have to feel that on the 10th day. If you don't feel that, then you've really not celebrated Navaratri. You've done something else. Yeah. So that is actually the way I see it. Is I see the first day of Navratri, which is Shaila Putri. Shaila means mountain, daughter of the mountain, daughter of the earth. Yeah. So it's the earth body. So we are sending. So if you see from earth, so we are nourishing earth, then comes Brahmacharini, she who moves. Yeah. So this can be both earth and water, or air and ether. So it is also, there is this movement elementally. We are going from, there's an order in which the elements are formed, right? It is, if you see in consciousness, from empty space, there's movement, which is air. And then when the movement of air picks speed, it heats up and fire comes into existence. And then fire, high friction causes things to break. And there happens this process of fluidity that starts coming in. Then they can come together to consolidate at the earth element. So earth element has all the other elements in it, right? So you can either move from earth to ether, resimulate that, or you can move from ether to earth. Yeah, and both are fine, and you can do both together as well. So how you celebrate Navratri is not as significant as why you're celebrating. Where is your intention of celebrating Navratri? So this is something very, and you can create your own map. Yeah, you can create your own based on each of these goddesses. So the nine nights consists of nine goddesses, starting with Shailaputri. Then comes Brahmacharini. Brahmacharini. Charini means to move. Someone who moves established in consciousness, established in the Brahman. Yeah. And then comes Chandra Ghanta. There is sound. Yeah. And the moon. Yeah. So there is, that means there is also a waxing and waning in this movement. It's not a static movement. Yeah, so there is the influence of the moon, and that is also connected to water. Moon is influences our water. Yeah, and then comes Kushmanda. Kushmanda is also meaning, it is when seeds, lots of unrealized potentiality, infinite seeds of potentiality waiting to sprout. And this movement of sprouting only happens because of the fire element, because it requires something to break open. So Kushmanda is connected to that energy of fire, the element of fire. And then comes Skanda Mata. Mata, it's the mother. Yeah. So something has sprouted, creativity has sprouted, and there is life. So that life, fullness of life, that is connected with fire. Yeah. So the will has sprouted, and then that will really needs, that's what is sprouted, really needs to be cared for, nourished, nurtured. And that's the role of Mata, the mother. Yeah, so really the mother consciousness. And then we come to Katyayani, yeah, which is again connected with, from just with fire, it doesn't end there, right? Air, intellect, intelligence, the ability to know, to move, yeah. So that to that is connected with Katyayani, and then comes Kala Ratri. That is the seventh night. Kala Ratri is the darkest of darkest nights. So now you see, you've come here, but you're already being reminded of the darkest of darkest night. Everything that rises, blossoms, might have the greatest of expression, it needs to end. There is an end of everything that matters, whether it's relationship, whether it is buildings or things, whether it's events, everything ends. Emotions end. Everything shifts. So Kala Ratri is also that reminder of the greatest truth that everything is changing. And that is connected to air element. So Kalaratri is connected to Kali, all those kind of goddesses, energy that is brings destruction, death, and rejoining with consciousness. And then comes eighth day, which is Mahagauri. Yeah, and she is when you realize that everything ends on this earth, everything, then there is a relaxation. Then there is a lightness. Your feet are light on the earth every time they step on earth. There is a humbleness that starts happening in us when we look at everything. Everything that you meet, you want to meet from the being, not in the doing. You recognize that being in that, because you know that is forever. Their doing will keep shifting. So you're not caught in the doing. That kind of knowing, wisdom dawns, and that is Mahagauri, the greatest of. She is actually the consort of Shiva. In the sense, she is one in which consciousness has awakened. She is Mahagauri. And then, once Mahagauri has awakened, comes the ninth night, which is about Siddhidatri. Siddhis. We hear this word often, that everything moves with you. The elements move with you. So you're not controlling anything. You are in alignment with everything. So then siddhis happen. So what are siddhis? Siddhis is, you don't need to know something. You want to draw something. You have this desire to express something. suddenly you can express it. You don't have to study too hard. You don't have to. When the time comes, you can speak it. You can understand things which you never thought possible before. So these kind of things, you start understanding language which you have never heard before, and you're wondering, if you put too much attention, it goes away. But you can understand. Certain things open up, and you're like, oh, how did this? Or you want to write something, and something most amazing spills out, and you look at it, you're like, did I really write this? So this is Siddhi. So you don't have to really learn. It's that experience in Matrix when they download all this software into Neo, and then Neo can suddenly do all kinds of martial arts and do these, he can do, but that's Siddhidatri. And that is a real possibility in our human consciousness, in our intellect, there is a possibility of that kind of wiring to happen. That suddenly you can experience that. So if you see these 9 nights every time when we are observing, especially in this time, especially the autumn, which is so close to the being cycle, it keeps us reminding that yes, I'm a human being, and I have come here to experience something very profound of my existence, of the being, of consciousness. I have not, you may become a famous cricketer, or you may become a great um, um, healer. These are all doing, yeah, or you may become a famous actor. Those are all doings that you do. But if you get caught in that, that's not the purpose. Your purpose is not here to be the greatest doing. Your purpose is here to experience the magnanimity of your being, which is permeating everything in consciousness. So you can look at an ant, you can look at an elephant, you can look at a tree and say, hey, that's my kin. And you look at, so when you keep your feet on earth, what you eat, what you consume, oh, this has an effect on everything else. And how do I move in the way that I'm in alignment with Mother Earth? So that reminder, so our ancients created these ritual maps so that we do not forget what it takes to be a earth dweller, what it takes to be a human being. We have the highest responsibility on earth. And so that is Navaratri. So when you are this dark moon, take a moment. From the being, so dark moon is being home, being almost nothing. It's like it's the womb, which is nothing. From that nothing, there is a fusion, and the whole life springs into being, and that's the next 9 days. So this is that empty, non-doing, still, quiet space of the Mahalaya Amavasya. And from here, we are springing into doing as an expression of being, the doing as an expression of being. So that is Navratri. So how you really make time, you can read about it, but yet come back. It's establishing a very deep connection to your will, just the way it has come to you. So all those who went, see, that's why we do this whole ancestral remembrance, and then we step into it, because we need that. The will can only go so far as the roots are on it. So yeah, so that is Navaratri. And whether you do any ritual, whether you wear any matching colored clothes, all of that doesn't matter. But if we can take every night a few moments to sit and really connect to the quality of the goddess of that day, feel her, yeah, express her, integrate her, and see how you can bring that quality in the next phase on earth. How can you deepen that? That will take us more and more into really living our human being on earth. Yeah. So blessed. And this is what I wanted to share with you. May it guide me, may it guide you. May we each find our way home in our most unique way. Blessed.